Ruby Ridge, Waco, Texas, the Montana Freeman, and now Nevada with Clive and Bundy. How are they different? And what does what just happened in Nevada mean for our future and for the future of the people that were on the ground there? We're going to discuss it on today's Voice of Resistance.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Welcome to the program. As of this taping, the standoff, the armed standoff between federal agents and Clive and Bundy and his supporters in Nevada, southeast corner of Nevada, has come to a peaceful conclusion. And we're going to analyze some of what happened today, but I want to look at why did this happen? Why did it end this way without the loss of life, which I am so thankful for, so thankful. Their tensions were getting so high and people were weighing in. Before the end of the crisis, the governor of Nevada, Brian Sandoval, said, quote, "No cow justifies the atmosphere of intimidation which currently exists, nor the limitation of constitutional rights that are sacred to all Nevadans." One of the U.S. senators from Nevada, Dean Heller, who's a Republican, and by the way, in case you didn't know, the U.S. Senator Harry Reid, who is the leader of the Senate, okay, he is from Nevada, and there are a lot of allegations involving him and his son involved in some sweet land deal with the Chinese to put up wind farms there. That will come out more and more over the coming days and weeks, I'm certain. But here's what Senator Heller said. He said, "The dispute is over. The BLM is leaving, Bureau of Land Management. But emotions and tensions are still near the boiling point, and we desperately need a peaceful conclusion to this conflict. I urge all the people involved to please return to your homes and allow the BLM officers to collect their equipment and depart without interference." It's interesting to me that Heller said that we are desperate, that we desperately need a peaceful solution. Why would he want that? Why would he feel desperate for that? Well, here's a real simple reason. What the Obama administration does not have, is a further excuse for gun confiscation and gun control. If there had been shots fired, the loss of life on both sides, which surely would have happened, then the Obama administration would say, see, these militia types are crazy. They interfere with lawful orders. They interfere with our federal court system. They interfere with land management. Most cattle ranchers are abiding by the law. Why should Clive and Bundy have special privileges? I mean, they would have spun this to use it against the Second Amendment. So, and Heller, I'm certain, is a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. So this peaceful resolution is a really good thing, people. And I've got to tell you, I don't remember a time, and I could be wrong. If you can think of one and you want to email me, please do. But I can't remember a time in my lifetime when federal agents backed down from anything on U.S. soil. I mean, clearly our military overseas in various situations, such as the bombing in Beirut when so many Marines were killed and then we had to withdraw in dishonor and fear. There have been times when U.S. troops have withdrawn, but I don't know of any time in my lifetime when federal agents backed down. So this is a huge deal. And again, the lack of coverage that has come from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the major networks about this story is atrocious. It is deplorable. It's outrageous. I can't think of enough negative adjectives to use. So in today's program, we're going to look at why they backed down and what this means for the future, what it might mean. There's a number of scenarios that could play out. But I'll tell you one really key reason why they backed down and why this didn't end like the tragedy in Waco or the tragedy in Ruby Ridge. And I'm going to tell you those stories when we come back from this break. But two of the main reasons why the federal agents backed down was, number one, they lost the high ground politically. When you have a governor weighing in against the BLM, when you have a U.S. senator weighing in against the BLM, you have lost the high ground politically. And number two, they lost the high ground militarily. Look at these pictures. The federal agents were surrounded. If gunfire had erupted, those agents knew that they had people up on those bridges. They had people that undoubtedly had weapons trained on them. And it would have resulted, without question, in the loss of a lot of civilian lives. But there is no chance that all of those federal agents were going to leave that place alive. There's no chance, militarily speaking. So because they lost the high ground politically with public relations, and because they clearly lost the high ground on the ground regarding firearms, as the director of land management, the Bureau of Land Management said, given the situation, speaking with law enforcement, we're stopping. We're withdrawing so that none of our employees and no civilians are hurt. More honest words were probably not spoken during this standoff. We'll come back and we're going to compare what happened to Ruby Ridge and to Waco, and we'll assess what this will mean possibly for us in the future. This is the Voice of Resistance.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at KurtCameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
As I said, I cannot think of any time in my lifetime that federal agents backed off and retreated. One caveat to that, some of you will remember in the mid-1990s a group called the Montana Freemen. There appeared to be violence that was going to occur with federal agents, and because Waco and Ruby Ridge were fresh on people's minds, including the FBI withdrew a great distance, never left the area, and the standoff was over 80 days long and ultimately arrested with the surrender of the Freemen and then their prosecution for a lot of stuff that was clearly criminal activity, bank fraud among them. A lot of people lost money. So, but they never left, all right? These federal agents have left. Now, I want to compare the differences of what happened with Waco and with Ruby Ridge to what just happened in Nevada. In the situation on Ruby Ridge, which happened in August of 1992, for those of you who don't remember, a thumbnail sketch is that Randy Weaver and his wife Vicki and their children lived in Montana. And Randy Weaver was set up by a federal agent to create some sawed-off shotguns. It was never clear whether or not he kept them at a legal length of the barrel or not, but the government was trying to roll him to become a snitch, all right? sorry for this in-house talk, but they were trying to say, look, we've got you, we can charge you with this sawed-off shotgun business, but if you'll be an informant for us, then we'll let you go. And he said, I'm not having any part of it. So officers Cooper and Deegan went up on the hill, and a very long and tragic story made short was that one of the officers shot Samuel Weaver, the boy, a teenage boy, in the back and killed him. One of the officers, Officer Deegan, was shot and killed. And then later, Vicki Weaver, the mom, was standing in the doorway of their cabin holding their baby, and a sniper for the FBI shot her and killed her. She was unarmed. And the rules of engagement that the FBI has say that you cannot fire on a civilian, cannot use deadly force against a civilian unless your life is immediately threatened, okay? But the commander on the ground changed the rules of engagement and said, kill. If you see Randy Weaver, kill him. If you see Vicki Weaver and their children are in danger, kill her. Now, she's holding a baby while she's shot, okay? So when this all was over and you had one federal agent dead, the mom dead, and the teenage boy dead, there was such outrage. And when the people were acquitted, because they were brought to trial, all right, Randy Weaver was brought to trial, he was acquitted, then they sued the federal government. The federal government ultimately paid $1 million each to the 3 surviving daughters of Vicki Weaver and $200,000 to Randy Weaver. They were suing the federal government for $200 million, and one insider, who would not be named, worked for the federal government, said if they'd have gone to trial, they probably would have gotten the $200 million. What the federal government did at Ruby Ridge was deplorable, okay? But what they had was element of surprise. They had people hunkered down in a cabin. They didn't have media circling around. They didn't have cell phones taking live video footage. The situation on the ground was very different. And the standoff was resolved peacefully when, you might remember the name Bo Greitz. He ran for president once as an independent candidate, retired military. He went up unarmed and was able to talk Randy Weaver down and get everyone out of the cabin and to end the situation without the further loss of life. But what happened at Ruby Ridge was very odd at that time. And it began the sense of, oh my goodness, we've got a federal government that's out of control. And this is why we have a Second Amendment. So when you listen to militia speeches or to read their writings, you will see this constant reference to Ruby Ridge, because what the federal government did there, what the agents did there, and then when they brought in more agents, what they did was completely unconstitutional, was probably illegal, and ultimately the federal government had to pay money to the family because what they did was so horrific. What happened in Nevada was not like that. It was in broad daylight. There was no element of surprise. The federal agents were clearly outnumbered, and they had guns trained on them from many positions. So thankfully, there was no loss of life in Nevada, but this thread of what happened in Nevada is a part of a tapestry involving the Second Amendment, the right of people to bear arms, the right to use our arms, to protect our rights from a tyrannical, out-of-control government. That tapestry continues to be woven. And part of the threads of that go through Waco. When we come back, we'll give you a quick recap on what happened in Waco for those of you who don't know, and again, make the comparisons. And then we'll look at how what happened in Nevada is going to be with us for a while. Don't go away. This is the Voice of Resistance. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. Some of you will remember this man, David Koresh, as he named himself. He was the leader of a group of people called the Branch Davidians. They were in Waco, Texas, and they had what they called the Mount Carmel Center. Somewhere around 100 souls living together in community. David Koresh was a Seventh-day Adventist who became a heretic and had some very bizarre, unethical, and immoral behaviors, including telling married couples if they wanted to be there that the couple had to separate and live celibate, but that he could have marital relations with the other man's wife and bear children by her. So, according to the reports, he had as many as 14 children on the compound, 2 of them from his legal wife and the other children from other women. It was bizarre. It was sick, okay? And the federal government decided to train their sights on him over alleged weapons violations. Alleged. And as it turns out, it looks like there were no criminal activities involving firearms there. But newly appointed Attorney General Janet Reno, one of the most evil people to be in law enforcement in my lifetime, and I say those words with surgical precision, an evildoer. Her first press conference as Attorney General, she said that her #1 priority as the Attorney General was to break the back of Operation Rescue, which was the pro-life group that I was leading, okay? So I have a personal history with Janet Reno. With all the crime going on, she wanted to break the back of a pro-life group that was saving babies. That gives you a picture of what kind of woman she was. Well, she convinced President Clinton that they had to go and use deadly force there. Now, what happened was the element of surprise originally to simply take David Koresh was lost. And there was an original gunfight, an initial gunfight, in which 5 federal agents were killed, if my memory serves me correctly. And then the compound was surrounded. The standoff lasted for 50 or 51 days, and the agents finally, on the morning of April 19th, they punched a hole in the wall and poured tear gas through the barrel of what looked like a tank. They were just pouring tear gas into the building. A few members of the Davidians escaped, but the building was engulfed in flames, and the ultimate loss of life at the time was 76 human beings, including the federal agents. It was horrific. Janet Reno convinced President Clinton that the children were being abused. It was horrifying. There was sexual molestation going on of the children, but none of this was ever proven. It was Janet Reno with an itchy finger. 2 years later, to the day, Timothy McVeigh blew up the federal building in Oklahoma, okay? And part of what allegedly motivated Timothy McVeigh was what happened at Ruby Ridge and what happened in Waco. Again, what happened in Waco is a part of the narrative of the militia. And again, the differences were very clear. There was not the home of Clive and Bundy surrounded and a bunch of militia people surrounded by federal agents. The federal agents were surrounded in broad daylight with cameras rolling by a bunch of protesters, many of whom were carrying sidearms and who allegedly had rifles in their automobiles. So the difference was very stark, very clear. But again, the narrative of government tyranny, of a government out of control and of the reason that we have the Second Amendment to protect ourselves from government tyranny. That tapestry, that narrative is continuing to be woven. And what happened in Nevada is going to be a critical aspect of that. And I'll explain in nutshell form why when we come back from this break. This is the Voice of Resistance. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. To put it simply, the federal government is not going to allow Clive and Bundy and the militia to emerge as heroes from this incident unscathed. It's not going to happen. What will happen? Well, we might see that the federal government seizes his bank accounts. And there is a simple question of why didn't they just do this earlier? In other words, if he owes the federal government over $1 million, they know how to execute a lien. They know how to put a lien on a man's bank accounts. They know how to put a lien on his property. They could put a lien on the property and not execute the lien until his death or the time of sale of the property. They don't even have to surround the property and say, we're repossessing it. That, at this point, would bring a crisis, all right? They might charge him criminally. In other words, if he's found in contempt of court, then the next thing would simply be to charge him with criminal contempt. In other words, if a judge issues you an order and you defy the judge, you can be arrested for criminal contempt. How do I know? It happened to me, okay? I was found in contempt of court many times, but one of the judges was tired of me, Federal Judge Robert Ward, and he had me arrested for criminal contempt. And I was tried for criminal contempt, found guilty, and spent 5 months as a federal prisoner. So they could charge him criminally. But what they can't do is they can't leave him alone. And the reason they can't leave him alone is because they cannot afford for the federal government to be seen as weak. Now, I want you to think through the assets that are at the disposal right now of the federal government. NSA has recorded every single phone call, every single email that originated within 50 miles of the incident that just occurred. You can bet your bottom dollar that federal agents and the people who work for them, like Edward Snowden, are going to be scouring, listening to every single phone call. And so one thing we know, one thing we can rest assured on, is that the people who were there are now going to be identified by the federal government in their role that they played on the ground by virtue of what they said on their cell phones, what they texted, or what they emailed. These people are going to be a part, in my opinion, of some type of a portfolio, some record that the federal government is keeping to identify them as the people to watch out for. I'm out of time. We're going to continue this discussion, but friends, this is a big deal, and it's not over. This is the Voice of Resistance. you.